Hello everybody, Elijah Williams with Williams Built Blades. How to do a quick video today on the Scandi Grind and how I do that grind. The Scandi Grind or Scandinavian Grind is something that's become a little more popular as of late, and this is take 2 in the video, and I just stuck them in the kiln for a normalizing cycle, so I can't actually show it to you. How special is that? But I'll try to explain it the best I can. The Scandinavian grind is kind of traditional because the Scandinavians used it for a long time, and it's become more popular with the Northwoods type bushcraft sort of thrust of things. Scandinavian grind differs from most other blade grinds in that there's simply one grind to the blade, just angles up until it comes to an edge where it's sharp. The difference between that and a lot of other grinds, such as the flat grind, hollow grind, convex grind, is that other grinds taper gradually on the profile of the blade until they come to probably about 20 or 25 thousandths thickness, and then there's a final edge that's more obtuse, significantly more obtuse, and that's where the knife becomes sharp. So there's some advantages and disadvantages to the Scandi Grind that I'm aware of personally. One of the big advantages is that it's easy to get the correct angle when you're sharpening it. If you don't have the correct angle when you're sharpening a knife, you can have everything else right and your knife probably won't be very sharp, and if it is, the edge won't hold up very well, potentially won't hold up very well. So the great thing about a Scandi Grind is that there's the edge on the blade, and you have to look at the pictures in the video here to see exactly what I'm talking about, or another Scandinavian ground blade, and you simply hold that angle, that grind, that flat on your whetstone or hone or whatever you're using, a flat surface, and simply take metal off of that angle, equal amounts on both sides. So you're never guessing about what angle because you're just holding that flat. It takes a little bit of finesse, but you're just holding that angle flat on the hone and going from there. So you always get the perfect sharpening job. So that's a distinct advantage. Another advantage is that because the grind is like on these little knives in the video that I'm doing, it's only about 1/4 of an inch at the bottom edge of the entire blade, and the blade's like an inch wide for it tapers, but it starts out about an inch wide. So you're leaving a lot of steel on your blade, and that gives your blade, your overall blade, a lot more strength than it would potentially otherwise have if in a conventional grind, because you're not taking all that steel off. So that's a distinct advantage. And along those lines, you can make your blade itself thinner because you're not taking all that steel off, and it doesn't require a thicker steel that you would probably have to use or want to use if you were doing a conventional grind, because you're taking so much more steel off. So that's an advantage. One of the disadvantages is that it potentially has a little bit less actual edge strength. And I'm not talking about the blade itself, I'm talking about right where the knife is actually sharp. That's probably the most important part of the knife, obviously. And that has to not only be sharp, but it has to hold up under cutting pressure. Obviously no knife does this perfectly, hence knife sharpening. But the better it does that, the more useful your knife is going to be, more durable, and so forth. One of the problems with the Scandi Grind is that once it gets down to the actual edge from that angle, it's very sharp, but there's actually less steel right there at that edge than there potentially is with a more conventional grind, in which it tapers and then there's a more obtuse final edge. This isn't a big enough disadvantage. I mean, most people probably wouldn't necessarily even notice that, depending on what kind of cutting you're doing, but that is something to think about. And another advantage that I've heard a lot about is when you're doing wood carving, that kind of thing, having that particular angle, and it's a little bit more like using a chisel only, and if you've ever used a chisel on wood, you know what I'm talking about, only it's at a different, you're holding it different, obviously, but having that having that kind of angle when you're carving wood and stuff like that can be really useful. So quick rundown on the Scandi Grind, and this video is just showing you how I do the Scandi Grind. Even though it's a very simple blade grind, it's one of the most difficult to do by hand, unless you have a jig, which then it isn't by hand. But I'm showing you in the video how I use a block of wood to get that angle perfect, and be able to do that without a bunch of different jigs and that kind of stuff. So hopefully it's interesting. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe. Thanks.